Sophia was a charming young woman, just a few years beyond my eldest daughter, who was 35. Our paths had crossed only a few times at the bustling events held at the school where my wife dedicated her days. I was acutely aware that she and my wife were in constant communication, and somehow I had found myself ensnared in the tumultuous saga of Sophia's divorce. From what I had pieced together, her ex-husband emerged as a quintessential figure of selfishness and thoughtlessness. He was known for his reckless pursuits of other women during his work trips, and when the truth of his infidelity came to light, he defiantly shirked all responsibility. In a storm of frustration, he turned his ire towards Sophia, hurling accusations that cut deep. He claimed she had fallen short of his expectations in their relationship, that she lacked the spark in their intimate moments, the warmth in her affection, and even the allure he once found captivating. In a cruel twist, he laid the blame for his own failures at her feet, as if her shortcomings were the root of his discontent when he returned home. What compels me to share this with you? It's the Friday evening just before the thrill of deer season begins, and instead of making my way to the cabin with my wife as I typically do, I find myself on a different path, heading to pick up Sophia. Almost 12 years ago, my wife and I stumbled upon a remarkable chance to acquire 200 acres of Missouri forest, a sprawling expanse teeming with majestic oaks and towering pines, all at an irresistible price. Since that moment, we have dedicated endless hours to crafting a cozy weekend cabin, meticulously carving out ATV trails, and transforming the land into thriving food plot areas for wildlife. United in purpose, we have forged the land into a prime haven for deer hunting. This journey was meant to be a cherished ritual between my wife and me. This year unfolded in a way that was unlike any other. As we sat down for dinner a few weeks back, my wife dropped a bombshell. She wouldn't be by my side for the opening weekend of hunting season. Chosen to participate in a pivotal series of meetings on educational reform, she found herself heading to the state capitol, a place we humorously dubbed the Big House. Though it was a moment of pride for her, to me, it felt like a burden weighing heavily on my shoulders. Typically, I would have ventured into the wilderness alone, a solitary pursuit I had embraced countless times in the past. However, after a minor cardiac incident earlier this year, my wife was resolute in her insistence that I should not venture into the woods alone for the weekend. Despite my fervent objections, she orchestrated for Sophia to accompany me on her inaugural hunting expedition. Though Sophia claimed to be adept with a gun, the thrill of hunting deer had always eluded her grasp. Oh, did I mention that this all unfolded on my birthday? My wife wouldn't be there for that moment either. With that aside, let us return to the unfolding moment. As I pulled up to Sophia's house, I pressed the horn, a sharp sound slicing through the stillness. It was a departure from my usual restraint, but this time, I had been told to make my presence known. The front door creaked open, and a flood of light poured forth, casting Sophia in a radiant glow as she emerged, weighed down by an astonishing array of gear. Embracing my role as her guide and mentor for the weekend, I stepped out of the truck, ready to assist her in loading her belongings. Describing her as talkative barely scratches the surface. Throughout the entire hour-long drive to the cabin, her voice flowed like a relentless river, filling the air with an unending stream of chatter. As she filled the air with conversation, a whirlwind of cheerfulness and energy enveloped the room, starkly contrasting the withdrawn and quiet figure my wife had painted over the past few months. Yet, I found no reason to voice my discontent. I would much prefer her cheerful demeanor over a gloomy one, particularly knowing we would be trapped together in a cramped hunting blind for hours on end. As the clock struck 9 p.m., we arrived at the cabin, the air thick with anticipation. I wasted no time, diving into the task of bringing the place to life, flicking on the power, flowing the water, igniting the heat. Each action felt like a step deeper into the heart of our adventure. As the night wore on, the temperature was set to hover around a brisk 50 degrees. Yet, there was a comforting allure in waking up to the embrace of a warm cabin, a sanctuary against the chill that lingered outside. By 9:30, the fire crackled to life in the wood stove, sending waves of warmth cascading into the main room, enveloping the space in a cozy embrace. Sophia had settled into the loft, her new sanctuary, and was immersed in the task of arranging her gear for the dawn that awaited her. As I sank into the plush embrace of the great room, I flicked on the satellite receiver, eager to catch the final moments of a classic war movie that flickered to life on the screen. "May I step into the shower?" Her voice echoed from the shadows of the loft above. "Of course, go ahead," I said, recalling the moment I had shown her the cabin's solitary bathroom, a small sanctuary tucked away in the shadows. Crafted for optimal efficiency, the cabin embraced the warmth of a wood stove, harnessing the sun's energy, with a backup generator standing ready in the shadows. The bathroom boasted a striking design, featuring 2 expansive sliding doors, one leading into the bedroom, the other opening to the great room. When drawn apart, they invited a gentle warmth to cascade through the space, yet when sealed shut, they cocooned the room in an intimate embrace of privacy. A surge of pride washed over me as I marveled at its sheer practicality. Engrossed in the film, I was jolted from my reverie as Sophia emerged from the shadows, gliding down the spiral staircase beside the sofa where I sat. My gaze was drawn to her as she glided past, draped in nothing but a scant towel that clung to her form, barely concealing her allure. She made her way to the bathroom, the towel clinging to her as she moved, its edges creeping higher with each step. As she approached the bathroom door, a precarious balance of soap, shampoo, and towel threatened to slip from her grasp. With a swift motion, she managed to slide the door shut behind her, barely avoiding disaster. It was utterly absurd, I thought, for her ex to claim she wasn't attractive. As I shook my head, trying to dispel the haunting image and immerse myself back into the movie, the sudden rush of the shower ignited a cascade of unwelcome thoughts. Sophia stood just beyond the door, a mystery waiting to be unveiled, her appearance a tantalizing enigma that stirred the imagination. I berated myself, a fierce reminder echoing in my mind. She was my wife's friend, and my purpose here was to impart the skills of hunting, not to entertain any wayward thoughts. Yet her gentle melody floated through the walls, weaving a spell that tugged at my thoughts, pulling them away into a realm of distraction. At last, the melody faded into silence, leaving only the soft, persistent sound of water flowing. I felt no concern over her running out of hot water, the instant heater ensuring a steady supply. Yet, a flicker of surprise ignited within me as I pondered just how long she was taking. Relief washed over me as she opted for a shower tonight rather than in the morning. Then her voice reached me, low and undeniably laced with pleasure, reverberating softly through the fragile bathroom walls. The chilling awareness of what was unfolding sent my thoughts spiraling into chaos. What thoughts swirl within my mind? I berated myself once more, struggling to focus on the flickering images on the screen. After what seemed like an endless stretch of time, the water finally ceased its relentless flow, and the familiar sound of her soft humming returned to my ears. As she dried herself off, my mind became a whirlwind of vivid images, captivated by the thought of how she might appear in that intimate moment, utterly exposed. Indeed, you are correct. My desires burn fiercely within me, a relentless fire fueled by an insatiable hunger that often goes unquenched. My wife, however, seems to drift in a world untouched by the same passions, leaving me in a state of yearning that is both exhilarating and tormenting. She can't be solely blamed for what happened. Once the organs that generate those vital hormones are taken away, the spark of desire fades into an elusive shadow, leaving a void that is hard to comprehend. This is a struggle that belongs to me, not her. Our bond runs deep, yet the weight of imbalance over the years has sparked its fair share of conflicts. We continue to search for a path forward, unraveling the steps necessary to ignite her desire for intimacy more frequently. Once every month or so, the frustration mounts, and now, as night falls, the act of going to bed has transformed into a solitary pursuit of sleep, overshadowing any semblance of intimacy that once lingered in the air. "Much better," she murmured, the door creaking open as she stepped into the dim light, a towel draped partially across her body. With a graceful movement, she glided toward the stairs, drawing my gaze as she approached me. The towel clung to her chest, while another section was busy soaking up the moisture from her damp hair. The remaining fabric draped over the space between her legs, leaving her sides and back tantalizingly bare. As she ascended the stairs, each step seemed to draw me in deeper, my gaze lingering on her nearly bare form, despite my desperate attempts to look away. A flicker of relief washed over me as she ascended the stairs, vanishing from my view, leaving behind an unsettling silence. Your wife's invitation to come out here means a lot to me. I think I'm going to have an amazing time, she declared, her voice laced with excitement as she descended the stairs once more. This time, she wore a pair of tiny navy blue shorts and a cropped white top that flirted with the edge of modesty, leaving just enough to the imagination. She descended the stairs, her presence commanding my attention as she glided past me. With a deliberate grace, she settled onto the sofa beside me, cradling what looked like an empty jar of peanut butter, its significance lingering in the air between us. Tomorrow promises to be intriguing, I replied, a sense of unease creeping in. Shyness isn't your usual companion, is it? I could do this somewhere else if you prefer, she said, her voice laced with a gentle warmth. What? Oh no, I'm not really shy, I replied, a flicker of confusion dancing in my mind as I tried to grasp what she meant. She murmured, her fingers deftly twisting open the jar of peanut butter, the lid clattering to the side as anticipation hung in the air. In a moment that felt both unexpected and inevitable, she raised her shirt, exposing her left breast in its entirety. I stood frozen, my breath caught in my throat, as she meticulously began to express milk into the jar. Victoria shared that you were a constant source of support for her, as she breastfed all your children. My husband found it utterly repulsive. Yeah, we were, I replied, my gaze locked onto her bare skin, the moment heavy with unspoken tension. Once it was a norm embraced by many, a time when the act of breastfeeding was celebrated and accepted. Yet now, the tides have turned, and society appears to be retreating, casting shadows over this natural bond, and making the journey of breastfeeding a challenging path once more. The only way I can manage is by pumping milk while I'm at work, she continued, her voice tinged with determination. Victoria mentioned that you used to help her with that as well, didn't you? What? Extracting milk? Indeed, I had come to her aid on several occasions, I confessed. I bet she really appreciated that, Crystal murmured, leaning in closer as she poured more milk into the jar, her movements deliberate and filled with intent. I had always held on to the conviction that she would. How I long for someone to take that step for me. My husband would never do anything like that, I mumbled, my voice barely a whisper as she set the jar down a sofa between her legs. With a swift motion, she pulled her crop top over her head, leaving her completely bare above the waist, the air thick with tension. Would you dare? Just express some milk for me? I urged, a sense of intrigue bubbling within. I'm sure Victoria wouldn't mind. Is it merely milk, or is there something more lurking beneath the surface? A surge of doubt washed over me as I hesitated, fully aware that my wife would likely be appalled at the thought of me touching another woman's breasts, particularly those of a friend she held dear. Oh, I'm sure she wouldn't mind, Crystal said, her voice a soft whisper as she reached for the jar nestled between her legs. She leaned over my lap, her left arm slipping between the sofa arm and my leg. Her presence beside me created an unspoken tension in the air. There. Now you can just reach over me and do my other side, she murmured, her voice a gentle invitation that hung in the air. Crystal, I began, my voice trembling with urgency. I can't let this happen. This isn't right. Oh, come on, it'll be fine. Just a gentle squeeze, and you'll get a little milk from my breast, she urged, her voice laced with a mix of reassurance and intrigue. No, we're definitely not doing anything like that, I mumbled, my heart racing at the audacity of her suggestion. That sensation is unlike anything I've felt before, she breathed out, a hint of wonder in her voice. With a firm grip, I exhaled deeply, a silent wish escaping my lips that the secret would remain hidden from Victoria. I started to explore her curves with a deliberate touch, each movement filled with intention. Your hands are so strong yet so gentle. I can't even begin to express how wonderful it feels to have you doing this, she said, her voice a soft whisper filled with awe. As long as you keep it from Victoria, I whispered, a thrill of secrecy coursing through me. Believe me, she wouldn't object in the slightest. But if you truly feel that way, I promise to keep it to myself. Good, for I had no doubt she would end me for this, I replied, my grip tightening on her soft breast as I poured more milk into the jar. I think that's good enough, she murmured, her voice a soft caress as she delicately guided my hand away from her breast. With a tender touch, she let it down to her firm, flat stomach, just inches from the waistband of her shorts, igniting a spark of anticipation in the air between us. As she sealed the jar of milk, her fingers deftly twisting the lid, she placed it beside me on the sofa. In that moment, she turned her head, her gaze lifting to meet mine, a silent connection sparking between us. She shifted on my lap, turning to face me, her body pressing against mine in an intimate embrace. She looked at me with silent understanding, a complex emotion passing between us, and firmly pressing my palm against her stomach. She released my hand, her fingers trailing down as she unsnapped her shorts with a soft, tantalizing click. The sound of the zipper echoed in the stillness, each tiny tooth parting as she gradually eased it down, a tantalizing promise unfolding with every inch. My heart thundered in my chest, each beat echoing like a drum in the stillness of the moment. Crystal, I began, but she silenced me with a gentle touch of her finger against my lips. Silence. Not a word should escape your lips. I long to savor the warmth of your embrace, to lose myself in the sensation of your arms around me. It's been ages since anyone has touched me the way you do, she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of longing and vulnerability. Her voice was soft, a whisper that wrapped around me as she grasped my wrist, leading my hand deeper into the unknown. With a swift motion, she lifted one leg, her foot finding its place over the top edge of the sofa. She spread her legs, guiding my hand with an undeniable intent toward the very center of her being. Crystal, oh, don't halt this moment, I beg you. I just want to feel someone else's touch for a change, she pleaded, her voice trembling with longing. A wave of pleasure washes over me, enveloping my senses in a warm embrace. Your fingers dance with a tenderness that captivates, yet when they grip, there's an undeniable strength that commands attention. Victoria's luck knows no bounds. With a deliberate motion, she reached for the waistband of my sweatpants, pulling them down with a teasing tug. In the hushed stillness of the night, they found themselves enveloped in a moment that felt both fragile and eternal, their hearts beating in synchrony as they drew closer, the world around them fading into a distant whisper. I lingered in that moment, my gaze fixed on the flickering screen, oblivious to the fact that the movie had long since drawn to a close. At last, I extinguished the light, surrendering to the embrace of night. I donned my soft flannel pajamas, the fabric whispering against my skin, before sliding beneath the warm, inviting blankets, cocooned in a world of comfort and dreams. The morning light crept in, but it was the insistent beeping of the alarm that jolted me from my slumber, compelling me to rise and silence its demands. With a heavy sigh, I pushed myself out of bed, my feet dragging as I made my way to the bathroom, each step echoing the weight of the morning ahead. Once I had finished my familiar morning rituals, I stepped back into the bedroom, ready to choose my attire for the day. As the fabric slipped away, a chilling realization washed over me. I was not alone in this moment. With a swift motion, I closed the bedroom and bathroom doors, bracing myself for the possibility that she might venture downstairs before I was prepared. As the dawn broke, the chill in the air hinted at the cold morning ahead, but the promise of an unseasonably warm day lingered on the horizon. I slipped into my lightweight thermal underwear, feeling the snug embrace against my skin, before donning my familiar camouflage hunting gear, ready to face whatever the day might bring. Clad in my boots, I made my way to the kitchen, my voice echoing as I called up to the loft, urging Sophia to rise from her slumber. Okay, she murmured, her voice thick with sleep. The sound of her footsteps echoed on the stairs, drawing my gaze as she descended, still brushing the remnants of sleep from her eyes. As she descended the spiral staircase, completely bare, her breasts, full and heavy with milk, appeared even more pronounced than they had the night before. With each step, her chest rose and fell, a soft yawn escaping her lips as she called out, "I'll be there for breakfast in a minute," before striding into the bathroom, leaving the door wide open behind her. The view from the kitchen was limited, shrouded in shadows and mystery. The aroma of bacon crackled and danced in the pan as she emerged, her skin glistening, untouched by fabric. With a swift motion, she retrieved a jar of peanut butter from the fridge, settling at the kitchen table. Leaning in, she focused intently as she began to express milk from her right breast into the jar, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. "You could put some clothes on," I suggested, the air thick with unspoken tension. "Do you not find pleasure in the sight of my bare form?" Her voice barely broke the silence as she spoke, her gaze fixed on the ground. I never uttered those words. "Do you truly enjoy it?" Indeed, that may be true, but there's more to consider. Garments. What drives this question? What lies beneath the surface of that single word? A quest for understanding, a yearning for clarity, or perhaps a deep-seated curiosity that beckons for answers. The air thickens with anticipation as the mind races to unravel the mystery behind the inquiry. Why? The echo of that word lingers, inviting exploration into the depths of thought and emotion. Once the girls are tucked in and the house falls silent, I shed all pretense and embrace the freedom of my own skin. This place does not belong to you. This place does not belong to you. This place does not belong to you. That seems reasonable. If it truly troubles you, I can certainly find something to wear. Yet what purpose does it serve now? The aroma of breakfast wafts through the air, promising a feast that is just moments away. Prepare yourself with layers, for the chill of the outside world awaits. If you keep going like that, you'll freeze to the bone, I warned, my voice laced with urgency. "I've got plenty of warm clothes," she said, her gaze shifting to her left breast, which now seemed fuller than the other, a subtle shift that drew attention and curiosity. With a swift motion, I slid the sizzling bacon to the side, its savory aroma lingering in the air, and poured a vibrant mix of eggs into a fresh pan, ready to transform into fluffy scrambled perfection. As the eggs sizzled and transformed in the pan, she reached the end of her task, a sense of completion washing over her. As she rose to her feet, the air felt charged with tension, her bare skin glistening in the dim light. With purposeful strides, she ascended the staircase, the anticipation of what lay ahead hanging thick in the air. With a sense of purpose, I stepped into the dimly lit shed, the air thick with the scent of oil and metal. I approached the ATV, anticipation coursing through me as I prepared it for the adventure ahead. "Are we ready to dive in?" I inquired as she emerged from the cabin, her breath creating delicate wisps in the brisk morning air, a mere 10 minutes having passed. "I believe that's the case." "Weapon? Confirmed? Are we stocked up on ammunition?" "Check," she said, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. "Everything is ready." I mounted the ATV, my gear fastened tightly, and reached out, offering my hand to pull her up beside me. With a swift motion, she climbed onto the footrest and swung into the seat behind me, her gun and pack gripped tightly in one hand. With a steady hand, I slid the gun into the second holder, the weight of it a familiar comfort. The engine roared to life as I set off towards the hunting spot, anticipation coursing through my veins. The setting was nothing short of perfect. A tranquil pond nestled beside a sprawling food plot, a hidden gem in the heart of nature. The weather was irrelevant, for I had constructed a sturdy elevated blind, spacious enough for two. It was originally meant for hunting adventures with my granddaughter, a future filled with shared moments when she was older. Crystal pressed against me, seeking warmth as the cold air sliced through the night, the vehicle creeping along at a mere 15 miles per hour. We halted about 100 yards from the location, careful not to startle the deer lurking nearby. "We'll walk from here," I declared, my hand reaching for her gun, pulling it from the holder before passing it to her with a steady grip. "How far must we go?" she inquired, her voice laced with curiosity. "Just a mere 100 yards away." I need to keep my distance, avoiding any sudden movements with the ATV that might send them fleeing into the shadows. Is there a deep-seated animosity towards the ATV? Not quite. It isn't a predator, yet the mature bucks can sense its presence, instinctively steering clear of the territory. I snatched my pack, extinguished the ATV's headlights, and flicked on my crimson headlamp. For a fleeting moment, the world was swallowed by darkness, leaving us disoriented until our eyes slowly began to adapt. We treaded the winding path toward the food plot, crossed its threshold, and ascended into the blind anticipation thrumming in the air. It lacked grandeur. It lacked grandeur. Amidst the vast expanse, two X4 structures stood resolute, their wooden floors creaking softly beneath the weight of untold stories. The metal siding glinted in the sunlight, while the roof loomed overhead, a steadfast guardian against the elements. Each corner whispered secrets of resilience and purpose, inviting the curious to uncover the mysteries within. On a morning like this, the chill hung in the air, but as the sun began its ascent, the small space came alive, enveloped in warmth from the gathering bodies, a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. In the dim light of early fall mornings, I crafted the blind with deep brown walls and a roof that seemed to drink in the warmth, wrapping the space in a cozy embrace against the crisp air. As I flung open the windows, a rush of anticipation filled the air, and we nestled into our spots, ready to embrace the unfolding moments ahead. I drifted in that hazy realm between dreams and reality, my eyes shut tight, suspended in a delicate balance for what felt like an eternity. Then, as the first light of dawn began to creep in, the world outside stirred to life. The sky transformed, swirling from an inky black to a haunting deep purple, then to a shadowy blue kissed by fiery orange, before finally yielding to a soft pale blue as the first rays of sunlight caressed the treetops. The atmosphere was electric, and the location was renowned for its allure. Only the stillness remained, a tense anticipation hanging in the air as they awaited the arrival of a deer. My gun lay silent and empty, a mere prop in a lesson meant for Sophia. "It's breathtaking out here," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Indeed, all that remains is a deer," I murmured quietly. "This place is nothing short of extraordinary. In this very spot, I've claimed the lives of nearly a dozen deer. They arrive at the pond, drawn by the shimmering allure of its water. Oh," she whispered softly. We lingered in silence for what felt like an eternity, the weight of the stillness pressing down on us, until at last I caught the first flicker of movement breaking the monotony of the day. The air hung heavy with silence, the leaves frozen in place, when a subtle movement in the distance, about 100 yards away, seized my gaze with an electric jolt. With a hushed breath, I leaned closer to Sophia, my finger tracing the path of the deer as it edged toward the food plot. Each step, a delicate dance of curiosity and caution. Before him stood a young buck, its antlers a delicate crown of thin, spiky points, a stark contrast to the majestic, robust antlers of a seasoned deer. Young bucks often charge into situations with a reckless abandon that older ones would never dare to embrace. With the passage of time, the older bucks, seasoned by the trials of survival, become adept at evading perilous blunders, like the reckless choice of straying into an open field when the hunters are on the prowl. What clues signal the arrival of hunting season? Questions swirl in your mind. I'm not certain, but it feels like they possess an uncanny awareness. With a steady hand, Sophia lifted her rifle, the cool metal glinting in the dappled light as she maneuvered it through the front opening of the blind. Her heart raced as she focused intently down the length of the clearing, locking her gaze on the majestic buck that stood just beyond the trees. She repositioned herself repeatedly, meticulously adjusting her stance to align the shot perfectly through her scope. "Hold your breath until he shifts to the side," I whispered with urgency. Notice the way he inhales deeply, his nostrils flaring as he captures every scent that dances on the breeze. He prowls through the dense underbrush, eyes scanning the shadows, driven by an instinctual need to find a doe. He believes he has caught a whiff of her essence, lingering in the air like a haunting melody. With a quiet sigh, she observed the buck, her patience unwavering as it lingered in the shadows, moving at its own deliberate pace. A direct shot could be effective, yet the risk of spoiling prime meat by striking the stomach loomed large in my mind, I added. And just like that, he steps into the unknown. As he shifts to the side, focus your aim just behind his shoulder and squeeze the trigger, I commanded. Under her breath, she murmured an acknowledgement as the deer gracefully turned to its right, revealing its flank while making its way toward the dense thicket by the pond. "Any moment now," I breathed, urging her silently to seize the opportunity before it slipped away. The sound echoed in the stillness, a sharp and sudden interruption that sliced through the silence. It was the only sound that pierced the silence shattered by a single sharp click, echoing in the stillness. No explosion, No kickback, no haze to cloud the moment. Sophia muttered a curse under her breath, yanking the rifle back inside as she deftly worked the lever to chamber around. As she lifted the gun to take another shot, the buck vanished into the dense thicket, snatching away her chance in an instant. "So, you chose not to load your rifle when we made camp?" I inquired, striving to suppress the frustration that threatened to seep into my tone. "I thought I did," she said, her brow furrowing in confusion. "Understood." With a heavy breath, I fought to maintain my composure. "Perhaps he will return." "I hope so," she murmured, her voice heavy as she lowered the rifle, a deep sigh escaping her lips. Then, after a brief pause, she confessed with a hint of embarrassment, "Oops." "Yeah," I replied, leaning back, a heavy sigh escaping my lips. Though I wouldn't have chosen to take that deer myself, for a novice, every chance is a golden one. For 10 long minutes, we lingered in silence, each ensnared in our own swirling thoughts. Then, with a subtle shift, she rose to her feet, constrained by the low ceiling, and began to peel off her jacket, the fabric whispering as it slid away. "Are you all right?" I inquired. "I could have sworn you mentioned it would be freezing." "Ain't hot in here," she replied, her voice laced with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. The heat enveloped us, a stifling embrace that felt like it was well over 70 degrees, despite the promise of cooler air just beyond the walls. The sun blazed down, relentless, casting a deceptive warmth that made the outside world seem like a distant memory. "I refuse to stay out there," she declared, letting her jacket fall to the floor as she deftly unlaced her boots. "What are you up to?" My voice barely escaped my lips, a mere breath in the stillness. She tore off the long johns, eager to shed the layers that had clung to her like a second skin. "I'm roasting," she murmured, peeling off one boot, then the other, as the heat enveloped her like a thick blanket. With a careful glance around to ensure her safety, she stood up, mindful of the low-hanging metal roof above. Slowly, she unbuttoned her camouflage pants, letting them slide down her legs before settling back down, her heart racing in the stillness of the moment. With determination, she rose again, sliding her green thermal underwear over her hips and down her legs, each movement charged with purpose. My gaze was drawn irresistibly to her, each inch of her skin unveiled, until she settled beside me, utterly bare, hunting in the raw, where the thrill of the chase intertwines with the vulnerability of the human form. Yeah," I replied, my gaze locked in a trance. "Will you take the plunge and join me on this adventure?" She playfully taunted. "Strip away your layers, I mean." Hidden in the shadows, the deer remains blissfully unaware of our presence, and the world outside is oblivious to us as well. What is happening? Strip away all pretense. Strip away all pretense. "It wouldn't be co-ed naked hunting if you didn't," she said, a mischievous grin dancing across her lips. "Let's go." My mind raced, caught in a whirlwind of doubt as I grappled with her unexpected proposal. "This is wildly inappropriate," I whispered, the words barely escaping my lips, laden with disbelief. "Oh, that's no more inappropriate than you milking me while I lay on your lap," she shot back. That experience was far more harrowing than finding ourselves exposed in a deer blind. As I started, a heavy sigh escaped my lips. Imagine the weight of that secret hanging in the air. A silent threat laced with tension. "You wouldn't want me to tell your wife about that, would you?" The words dripped with a mix of menace and intrigue, leaving the room charged with unspoken possibilities, she added, a spark of mischief dancing in her eyes. "You wouldn't dare," I challenged, my voice steady despite the tension crackling in the air. "Perhaps I will, but then again, perhaps I won't." With a smirk playing on her lips, she leaned closer, her voice dripping with confidence. "Convincing me not to say anything wouldn't be too hard," she teased, a challenge hanging in the air between us. "So let me get this straight. If I strip down, you promise not to reveal that I was exposed with you?" I pressed on, seeking clarity in the shadows of uncertainty. "That's about right," she replied, her grin unwavering, a spark of mischief dancing in her eyes. A deep, weary sigh escaped my lips. Very well, I find myself in deep trouble already. What's a bit more to add? That's the spirit, she exclaimed with a bright smile as I began to untie my boots. In a matter of moments, I shed every piece of clothing, each item flying out the window like a forgotten memory, leaving us both bare, save for our boots. There, now it's truly a game of naked co-ed hunting, she said, laughter dancing in her voice. It appeared that I had no choice but to reply with a hint of sarcasm. She rose as high as the confined space permitted, pivoted, and settled onto my lap, her back firmly against my chest. As she swung one leg over mine, a rush of electricity coursed through the air. She leaned into me, her warmth enveloping us, and gently guided my hands to her breasts, igniting a spark that set the moment ablaze. I need to express some milk, and I'd much prefer if you could do it, she said, her voice laced with urgency. Was all of this merely a ploy to lead me here? I couldn't believe it, I said, my voice filled with disbelief. With a slight shrug, she conceded, her voice barely above a whisper. As our connection deepened, a relentless guilt started to claw at my insides. In the shadows of my own deceit, I found myself betraying my wife not just once, but twice, and an unsettling thrill coursed through me as I reveled in the treachery. What sort of man, what kind of husband had I become? Confession loomed over me like a storm cloud, heavy and unyielding. But how could I possibly find the words to unleash the tempest within? How could I shield Sophia from the impending storm of consequences? We should turn back now, I exclaimed abruptly, shattering the stillness that enveloped us. Barry, our clothes are out there, Crystal urged, her gaze fixed on the window, a hint of urgency in her voice. You tossed them aside just to have them back, I said, my voice tinged with a fragile chuckle. But it's freezing out there. I'll turn to ice, she protested, her voice trembling with fear. If that's the price we must pay, then so be it, I declared with unwavering resolve. With a heavy heart, Crystal finally rose, her movements slow and hesitant as she made her way to gather our clothes. With a swift motion, she hurled the clothes into the darkness beyond the door, then followed them, slipping inside with a sense of urgency. Trembling slightly from the lingering cold outside, the air inside offered little solace, especially with the door ajar as she hurried to gather our belongings. She nestled back into my lap, seeking the comfort of my warmth as she curled up against me. In a moment of instinct, I pulled her into my embrace, holding her tightly against me. We lingered in that moment, my hand gently gliding over her skin, the air thick with unspoken tension, until she shattered the stillness with a teasing whisper. Keep doing that, and you might just find yourself falling for me all over again, she teased, a playful glint in her eyes. Sorry, I mumbled, my voice barely above a whisper, as I swiftly withdrew my hands, letting them settle on her waist. I'm not, she said, her voice steady as she took my hands, drawing them back to her chest with a magnetic pull. I was reveling in the moment, yet I can't help but feel the familiar rush of excitement surging through me once more. When we return, you may find yourself compelled to love me once more. I have my doubts about that idea. We're already in deep enough trouble as it is, I replied, my voice laced with unease. Perhaps not, she chuckled, her voice laced with playful intrigue. We need to wash away the grime of the day. A shower's calling us both. Curiosity tinged with excitement danced in the air, as I pondered whether we could both squeeze into that cramped shower stall. Victoria and I have, I replied, the weight of my confession crashing down on me like a tidal wave, the realization hitting too late to take it back. With a bright smile, she tugged me from the bench, her enthusiasm infectious as she guided me toward the shower. As I stood there, a whirlwind of thoughts consumed me. How had I found myself entangled in this web of uncertainty? The weight of the impending consequences loomed over me, dark and foreboding. We hurriedly slipped into our clothes, forgoing underwear, as it felt superfluous considering the thrilling adventure that awaited us. The journey back to the cabin on the ATV was shrouded in silence, each of us ensnared in the depths of our own reflections. As we stepped inside, the inviting embrace of the wood stove's warmth enveloped us, a comforting welcome as we brought our gear through the door. Crystal shed her clothes with a sense of urgency, her anticipation palpable in the air. Yet, rather than coming toward me, she ascended the spiral stairs, disappearing into the shadows of the loft above. "Hurry up! I've got something incredible for you up here," she shouted, her voice echoing with excitement. With a nod, I fell in step behind her, ready to follow wherever she would lead. The chill of the air wrapped around me, my boots and pants the only armor against the encroaching darkness, leaving everything else exposed and vulnerable. She lingered by the bed, a cunning smile playing on her lips, her hands concealed behind her back. As I flipped it over, my heart raced at the sight of turmoil scrawled in my wife's unmistakable handwriting. As I tore open the envelope, a birthday card slipped out, its edges crisp and inviting. The front bore the words, "To my sweet, loving husband." As I pried it open, my eyes fell upon the printed message, each word pulling me deeper into its mystery. If only I could uncover the words that truly capture the essence of your extraordinary spirit and the magic you bring into the world. In a world filled with the ordinary, you stand alone, a singular light that captivates my heart. My love for you is eternal, unwavering, and boundless. Hidden beneath that layer, my wife had penned a heartfelt note, waiting to be discovered. I've witnessed the unraveling of too many friendships, as marriages crumble in the twilight of life, all because of the shadows cast by their fading intimacy. I can't bear the thought of that happening to us. Your kindness envelops me in ways I never expected, and I refuse to let our differences pull us apart. I understand that we'll find our way back to each other in that special way one day, but for now, my focus is on ensuring your happiness. For your birthday, I present to you a gift of shimmering crystal. Indulge in her presence as you desire. Your path is clear. You have my blessing. All I plead is that you reserve your love solely for me. As the weekend draws to a close, one question lingers in the air, waiting to be answered. Did my gift bring you joy? There's no need for further details. My heart belongs to you. On this special day, we celebrate the moment you came into the world, a day filled with joy and the promise of new adventures. Happy birthday. So last night and today, you were aware of this the entire time, I inquired. Indeed, it has been weeks now. With a sly grin, she confessed. Are you ready to step into the shower? The day stretches ahead, brimming with countless hours and endless possibilities to weave excitement into every moment. As I cast my gaze back to the card, disbelief washed over me, and I shook my head in sheer astonishment. Why not, after all? Will you bring cake along as well? Patience is a virtue, and the unfolding mystery will soon reveal itself. With a playful glint in her eye, she stepped closer, a teasing smile dancing on her lips. As she pressed her warm body against me, our lips met in a lingering, intoxicating kiss that sent shivers down my spine. Would you like to take a shower? She breathed softly, her voice barely above a whisper, as she pulled away from the kiss that had consumed them. I find myself lost in thought, searching for the perfect way to express my gratitude to my wife for the extraordinary gift she has given me.